last week's part is the heart. We call, なんだ。ヒューマンボディですね。ヒューマンボディがこうあったとしてですよ。ヒューマンボディがこうあったとして、なんだ、このハートですね。で、まあ、most important part of the brain. Brain is the most important organ in human being. で、なんだ。これはセルとかマッスルとかやって、でアーティシャルマッスルとかバイオロジカルマッスルの話をして、でブラッドでバイオマテリアル、ブラッドはだからブラッドがこうあったりして、でバイオマテリアルのブラッドがあって、それはなぜ、まあセルがあってブラッドがあって、でセルがあってセルがあってマッスルがあったのか。マッスルがあって、ブラッドがあって、で、バイオマテリアルか。これバイオマテリアルパートがあって、で、サーキュレーションシステムがあって、で、ハートか。で、ハートですよと。で、ここら辺のブラッドサーキュレーションシステム、ハート。はい、this is important. まあ、inside of the human body, most important part is the brain. To work the brain, the heart provides the blood to the brain. で、second important is the heart. This blood circulation system is there to work the total body. And from this point, we have to think about the human death, about this. So this is a positioning, present position in our course. There are many materials provided here. So today's part is very, very sensitive, and it is based on your individual thinking and also the religious considerations also. So therefore, some of them is, what I want to do is only provide some opinions or fact about this human death. Only information provided and some consideration provided. You can think, you can make your own decision by yourself. So therefore, you don't care about it is true or it is understandable, it is reliable or not. Reliable, all of the fact is reliable. But what is wrong, what is right, what is wrong, what is error, what is the good, what is bad, it's no meaning. You can think by yourself. Okay? It's okay. But what I want to say is that what we can do and what we should do is completely different, I think. So therefore I introduce something. So therefore to live as your own, the basic stance is to watch with your eye, experience by yourself, and the feel in your mind, and think with your head. Is it okay or not? Maybe you should think by yourself. Is it good or not, good or bad? I ask you to think by yourself. To do this, the many information is very useful to consider something. Is it only some mass media or communication media providing something? But to the not only this, not necessarily this is true or not. Some of them is yes good thing, but some of them is too sensitive. So therefore, your own opinion, to make your own opinion clearly, you should gather some information and think deeply on yourself. So mass media by report is something. It's only looks like mind control in some case. One word is the recipient, receiver of the organs. Donor is providing organs. So therefore, the two opposite side, opposite viewpoint is there. What is death? I asked last week's subject. Think about this. It is also different by yourself, individuals. All the days, 60 years is one cycle to complete the life. When at the time of becoming the 60 years old, 60 years is Oriental zodiac system. That is the 12 animals is there, and return to again to here is 60 years. In Japan, the 60 year celebration, the red blood food, red blood outerwear is given to the elderly people. This means, warding off the evils. That is the meaning of the red clothes. Red clothes to food, red clothes outerwear means. But also the recurrent to the birth date. So the baby looks red. So the old people is become to the divorce. It means 60 years is one some criteria or some celebrating year for people from the ancient years. And the vegetative state, we know the vegetative state is the cerebrum is injured, but to the brain stem is living, working. So therefore, in that case, the spontaneous breathing by themselves breathing can be done, and so therefore some energy providing, they can live, they can keep living, but no consciousness, and it is difficult to communicate each other. So therefore, the persistent vegetative state is looks like death. And presently, in many countries, government thinking the brain death is the complete death for the human individuals. But to the brain death people is also is warm and heart is beating and have a blood pulses, and also sometimes sleep, tears, and sweat. For many people, the cardiac death is acceptable for the death. The cardiac death means the trauma triad of death. 3 typical features about cardiac death. The heart is stopped, and the spontaneous breathing is also stopped. And thirdly, the light reflection of the eye is lost, and dilated pupil is also lost. Dilated pupil, this means that expanding, they cannot control the eye, the diameter of the eyes. But also, if the cardiac death is after the cardiac stopped, after the heart stopped, the hair and nails grows a little because each cell is keep living. So therefore, even if the heart is stopped, not necessarily all the cell is dead immediately. So for some period, some cells are living. So therefore, it looks like the hair is growing and the nail is growing. But after some period, the post-mortem rigidity become hard, and the muscle is hardened, and also the no blood circulation. So therefore, the body temperature decreases, and blood is stayed some part. So therefore, under the skin, some death spot is appeared, and death stenches, and the organ is destroyed, and then the death is all of the organs and the skins and the part is becoming dead. But in some cases, some people thinking about all death is completely dead, including the organic death itself. So therefore, the individual death is a continuous process. So therefore, it is difficult to find the criteria which is death run, what is living, what is dead. It is difficult to bordering because from living to the deading is a continuous process. It says. 人のregulatory organ か adjusting something. The nerve system is controlling the entire body, and endocrine system is also the controlling the body. Nerve system is physical movement controlling, physical activity controlling. Central nerve is a brain and spinal cord. Brain and spinal cord. Brain and spinal cord is one important central nerve system. The higher nerve system after the living, after birth, the posterior after birth acquired memory, experience, and knowledge. Based on that, this kind of learning process, learn something. So this kind of higher level consideration, higher level activity is the learned, studied after the birth. But the automatic nerve function is also there. Yes, when it is a very, very hot something, the when touch this, it is immediately relieved from this dangerous part. Is a automatic system. This is unconscious, instinctive. So therefore, it is only the brainstem or some medulla oblongate system is there. So when it is touched, it is responded immediately. Not using the brain, but in some cases the brain is here, but the brain stem, only brain stem works and the reaction is made. So this highly learned system is not used in that case. The endocrine system is also various chemical substances. So some adjusting system is working, but it is also automatically done and continuously done, and it is slowly changed. So therefore, it is not intuitive. It is not by yourself. It is not work by your intention. It is slowly changes, but continuously kept in the inside body conditions. This kind of adjusting system, adjusting system, is working always to keep your living activities constant. っていう話ですね。で、the brain, human brain, the cerebrum and cerebrium and brain stem. There are three parts, main part. The cerebrium and the cerebrium is after higher animals. It's developed well about cerebrum and cerebrum and cerebellum. But the brain stem is one important part, the fundamental system to make the immediate reactions, for example. ちょっとこの辺見ますか、なんか how nerve system works とか、まあこんなもんか。はい。
The nervous system is made up of two parts. Each part contains billions of neurons. The first part is the central nervous system. It contains the brain and spinal cord, which is a fibrous, rope-like structure that runs through the spinal column down the middle of the back. The other part is the peripheral nervous system. It consists of thousands of nerves that connect the spinal cord to muscles and sensory receptors. The peripheral nervous system is responsible for reflexes, which help the body avoid serious injury. It's also responsible for the fight or flight response that helps protect you when you feel stress or danger. Let's examine an individual neuron up close. Here is a peripheral nerve. Each one of the nerve bundles, or fascicles, contains hundreds of individual nerve fibers. Here's an individual neuron with its dendrites, axon, and cell body. The dendrites are tree-like structures. Their job is to receive signals from other neurons and from special sensory cells that tell us about our surroundings. The cell body is the headquarters of the neuron. It contains the cell's DNA. The axon transmits signals away from the cell body to other neurons. Many neurons are insulated like pieces of electrical wire. The insulation protects them and allows their signals to move faster along the axon. Without it, signals from the brain might never reach muscle groups in the limbs. Motor neurons are responsible for voluntary control of the muscles all over the body. The operation of the nervous system depends on how well neurons communicate. For an electrical signal to travel between two neurons, it must first be converted to a chemical signal. Then it crosses a space about a millionth of an inch wide. The space is called a synapse. The chemical signal is called a neurotransmitter. Neurotransmitters allow the billions of neurons in the nervous system to communicate with one another. That's what makes the nervous system the body's master communicator.
まあいいや、ブレインシステムって特に this video is explaining about the brain and the stem systems. Yes, this is a persistent vegetative state. Persistent vegetative state. cerebrum, and cerebrium, and brainstem, and cardiac. The spinal cord is here. Function is lost, or some functions is residual. The vegetative state means it is severely impaired, injured, so therefore they become coma, lost consciousness, and the no response to the outward stimulus, but to the spontaneous breathing, and the purely light reflex is appeared, is kept. But it cannot communicate, and this kind of state is continued, kept. It means the brainstem is living. This brainstem is living. So therefore, the first response, the natural response, is there, is controlled by his brain. The definition of the Japan Neurosurgical Society it looks like this. So it cannot move by himself, it cannot feel by himself, and the faces urinary incontinence is there, and sometimes he can speak, he can say something, but not meaningful and not understandable. For some simple instructions, it can respond rarely, but mostly the communication is impossible. Eyeball is moved, but it looks like that he cannot understand anything more. So these things is continued more than 3 months. It is defined as a vegetative state. The next slide is explaining about the brain death. The difference between the brain death and the vegetative state. Vegetative state, the brainstem and the loss of function to residual function, cerebrum part is disappeared, but the cerebrum part and the stem cell is kept living. This is a vegetative state, but the brain death means all of the brain functions is disappeared. So some of the video, some professor is saying, これだったかな、ちょっと見てみますか。こちらね、こちら。
Well, this is obviously an incredibly sick.
どれだったっけな。
On TV, you hear the term vegetative.
I have a question.
違うな。スタッフ。あれどっかにあったんだけど、これかな。
Well, this is obviously an incredibly seen as being in a coma or a vegetative.
The brain, 2 ways of determining.
Video. 違うな、これどうかな。まあいいか。ちょっとあるビデオを見ておこう。はい、とりあえずじゃあこれを見ておきましょう。
Well, this is obviously an incredibly sad and heartbreaking situation. It's also very confusing for a lot of people. So let's start off by talking about some of the terms here. Brain death. Brain death is not the same as being in a coma or a vegetative state. Brain death, by definition, is irreversible. Now, in the United States and most places, it is legally synonymous with death, the same as if your heart stops. A brain death means a total loss of brain activity. Now, to determine it, doctors will often do several things. A physical exam, for example, shine light into the pupils and see, do they dilate, do they move and constrict? Gently rub the eyeball with some cotton and see if the eye reacts that way. Sometimes they'll put ice water into the ears and see if the eyes move in a particular fashion. These are all tests of the brain stem. They'll also do something known as an apnea test. That means they turn off the ventilator for several minutes and see if the person shows any signs of breathing on their own. As confirmation, oftentimes they'll do scans to check to see if there's blood flow to the brain and also test to see if there's electrical activity from the brain. But again, it's that detailed clinical neurological exam that is so important. Now, coma, if it goes on for an extended period of time, is called a vegetative state. And there's a fair amount of interesting research in this area. In a rare handful of cases, for example, people who have been in a vegetative state for years have returned to some level of consciousness. This is rare, but it does happen. But again, brain death is something else entirely. There is no activity in the brain. There is no blood flow to the brain. It is a grim situation, but again, something that a trained doctor can pretty easily diagnose. Back to you.
はい、ということで、the brain death to the vegetative state is completely different to the doctors or some definition is saying. So the definition of death is it's a little bit different. In the country and also in some cases states, the very various countries, but the various countries is thinking about presently the brain death is a death. So this is UK case, this is USA case, and this is Sweden's case. It looks like this. So therefore, the brain death is defined like this in many countries, in many societies. And also the various countries is thinking the brain death is a death. It's defined as a death. But in their case, it is recovered. It is recovered in this case. This is the brain's injury, degree of injury of the brain. The vegetative state is kept before the death. In this level, it is kept. But the brain death means it is in some borders, the brain activity is not recovered, and then the heart is stopped and complete death is coming. This horizontal line shows the time scale. If it's damaged, in some cases it is recovered. In some cases it is kept in a constant state as a vegetative state. But in some cases, the brain activity is hurted and injured, so therefore it is gradually to become the heart stop in this case. So during this period is saying the brain death conditions. Hypothermia treatment is used to prolong this period. And also the cardiovascular supporting system is used to prolong this brain death period. Yes, of course. Without that kind of treatment, without that kind of the equipment, this period is become short. When brain damaged and the nerve system is also damaged, and also that kind of I introduced two kinds of control system in the body. One is neural system, nerve systems, and the second is endocrine endocrine system. To nervous system and endocrine system is worked inside the body, but to the brain is damaged so much that these two systems is destroyed and cannot control the human body. So therefore it becomes to the cardiac stop and also the all body destroyed, all cell destroyed. Recovery, vegetative state, brain death. Yes. If it is over to this bordering, this border never recover itself. Never recover and go to the cardiac death itself. Then if it is set as a brain death, some opinions is a patient family is not it is hard as a brain death. It should be actively treatment, more drug provided, more ventilator is kept, and the drug is given, and this kind of treatment is prolonged, is maintained up to the cardiac death, cardiac arrest, cardiac stop, heart stop. But the passive treatment, in some case, passive treatment is there. The new treatment is not given, but to continue this present caring, and then to become the cardiac death. But in some cases, all of the treatment is stopped. The vasopressor っていうのは it means to keep the blood pressure. Some drugs or some maintenance system is working, but this kind of the blood pressure keeping system is stopped, and also the ventilator, the artificial breathing is also stopped. All of the treatment is stopped. In that case, it becomes shortly to the brain, from the brain death to the cardiac arrest. And the other case, the patient family is asked to consider about the organ donation. After the cardiac stop, heart stopped, the organ donation is asked in some case. ということです。This is a flow of the in Japan's case. Japan Organ Transplantation Network is doing these procedures. The damaged and brain death diagnosis is made. If it is a card to express the organ donation, is the own intention is checked, and also family member agreement is checked, and then the brain death test is made, and then the organ donated. Then, to do before doing the organ donation, how to test the brain death. How to test the brain death? Brain death is tested. I said, this is in some cases recovered. In some cases, the vegetative state is kept, but in some cases, it is set. Some border is there, and no possibility to recover. It's tested. So this is a brain death. It is set. To test, to recognize this, some test is defined. These 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These 5 items is tested. It is shown in the next slide. but the deep coma is tested firstly. And the papillary dilation is tested. The right response, no response is checked. And also brainstem reflex is tested. For example, the throat stimulus, coma stimulus, the ear cold water stimulus, purple light stimulus, throat, the back of the throat is stimulated, and the face is shaken, and the pain is given. This kind of outside stimulus is given to the patient, and the reaction is measured. Reaction is detected. And also the brain signal is detected from outside the brain. And spontaneous breathing is also tested. Because in that case, ventilator, the artificial lung system is released from the patient, and then so therefore the no oxygen is given to the patient, and the self breathing is tested. Then this test is made once and twice. Second time is made after 6 hours. With more than 6 hours interval. And then this double check, second check, is also the similar, also the same result. The brain death is defined. はい、というのが brain death checking system. So this looks like this. The throat is given, and cold water is applied, and also the purple's response by the light signal, light detection, light projection is tested, and also the head is moved, and this purple is moved or not is checked. Doll's eye phenomena. Living people, if the movement is checked, the people's eyesight is want to keep the same direction. So therefore, it is moved, and the eyesight is kept on this direction, and then the one eyesight is followed afterwards moving. The doll is not doing like this. Doll's eye is the direction of the shake hand is the purple's direction is also the same. Okay? But the people is not conscious, but he wants to keep one side, one direction side is want to keep. So this is autonomous system. So therefore this kind of check is checked. This kind of check is done. This is the universal style in the world. After, if you are interested in, you should watch this kind of video later. And the transplantation from the donor to the recipient, the organ graft is transplanted. Autologous transplantation, autograft っていうのがあるんだけど、this is looks like heart blood cell transplantation looks like this. For example, other blood is cutted from here to transplanted to the heart, or some other blood pipe is cutted out and then it is transplanted to the heart to support the bypass. So this is a set autograft, self-transplantation. But in many cases, from other person or from other animals is made. The living organ transplant is from the healthy people. So it is transplanted looks like the kidney transplantation or bone marrow transplantation, and also the blood, also blood transfusion. From others' blood, it is planted. It's inserted into the people. And cadaveric transplant, donor plant from the donor body. After the heart is stopped, it is set completely dead. The kidney or some corneal tissue is transplanted. But in this case is also before this donor is completely dead, the preparation is made. Just after the cardiac stopped, heart stopped, it is planted. Some organs, tissues are transplanted. And also the brain dead donors, from the brain dead donors, some organs, tissues is directly cut out from these people. As I said, the ancient, before artificial mechanical ventilator, artificial blood circular system or lung supporting system is not developed. The brain death is from the brain death to the heart stop is very, very close. Not so much long time. It's about 15 minutes. So during that period, it is a little bit difficult to cut some tissues and from the transplanted to the other people. But presently, there are many artificial systems, artificial supporting systems. The ventilator, respirator is supporting the blood circulation and the oxygen providing to the body, patient body. So therefore, from this brain stop period to the heart stop period, this period is prolonged several days. So therefore, during this period, some person is thinking this, some organs, some organizations, and some government is thinking the brain death is a completely death, human death. So therefore, after this time, it is acceptable to cut off some tissues, cut off some the organs from this brain death patient and transplanted to the donors, transplanted to the recipient. Okay. So therefore, the transplantation from the brain death donor is made after this kind of engineering system is developed. ちょっとここ見ますか、ドネーション、how does it work? どれがいいかな。はいか、これでも。What actually happened to your body when you donate your organs っていうのを見ますか。
About 95% of Americans support organ donation, but less than half sign up to be a donor. Why is that? Hey there, conscious collection of organs. Jules here for D-News. No one knows exactly why people refuse to be organ donors. Organ donation is a tricky subject, and it's super individual. According to one study, most people gathered information on organ donation by watching scientifically inaccurate shows like Grey's Anatomy. Another study backed up that data, showing more than half of people learned what they know about donation from television, and another 12% from their friends. Unsurprisingly, 72% of people were afraid of organ donation. So let's burst this anatomically gray bubble and talk about what actually happens during organ donation. First, if a patient enters a hospital, literally no one is thinking about whether or not they're an organ donor. If it's an emergency, then they're working to save the person's life, and if not, they're trying to make them healthy again. But it's a fact of life that they don't always succeed. If the person does die, only then do they check if the person was a donor. Only then. And of course, backing up a step, death itself can be complicated. Some people connect the presence of a heartbeat to life, but since 1981, legally, it's not the heartbeat, but brain activity that determines life or death. If the brain dies, it's not coming back. And patients who are brain dead, by the way, may still have basic functions, sometimes assisted or completely controlled by machines. And sometimes the cadaver will be on a ventilator at the time of death to keep the blood pumping, oxygen moving, and the organs alive. Sometimes death is easy to spot. Major injury, blood loss, suffocation, hemorrhage, swelling, stroke, and so on all make the diagnosis of brain death easier. But it's never taken lightly. Brain death isn't an accidental or flippant diagnosis like it is on TV. There's no fancy machine with colorful charts monitoring your brain activity. Instead, doctors, yes, there are two, will conduct a brain death test. According to the American Academy of Neurology, this means checking for reflexes controlled by the brainstem. They'll shine a light into the pupil, scratch the back of the throat, poke to cause minor pain, and put water in the ear canal trying to get eye reactions. If there's no response, they're disconnected from the ventilator to see if they have a respiratory drive, or if they want to breathe. If they react to none of these, doctors then decide that the person's brainstem isn't controlling their body, and they're considered brain dead. The ventilator is turned back on, and the family is informed. The doctors then check donor rolls and discuss final wishes with the family. If the person's wish is for organ donation, then they look for organ and tissue matches. The heart, kidney, liver, lungs, pancreas, intestines, skin, bone tissue, corneas, tendons, ligaments, and blood vessels can all be transplanted. That might sound like a lot, but that still leaves a lot behind. The doctors take as much care with deceased donors as they do with living humans, taking the donor to a sterilized operating room like any other. An anesthesiologist monitors fluids and body conditions while surgeons remove organs and tissues that can be used and inspect them for any unknown disease or damage. They then cool them for transport to the donee. Once the organs are safely removed, the person is closed like any other surgery and the ventilator is shut off. The body is cleaned, hair is washed, and the body is returned to the family. Real quick, there are a lot of myths out there about this process. Donors can have an open casket funeral. There's no problem with that. Organ donation is performed just like any other surgery. And doctors will absolutely work as hard as possible to save your life if you come in, no matter how many desirable looking organs you might have. And finally, no matter how old you are, your organs can be helpful. Organ donation is tough for people. A breathing body with a heartbeat is difficult for many family members to accept as a cadaver. And even if you sign up to be a donor and die in a way suitable for donation, your family can sometimes override that wish. That said, only 3 in 1,000 people die in such a way that allows for donation. They have to be generally healthy, without viral infection, and they have to die in a hospital setting. Over 119,000 children, women, and men are on the waiting list for organ donation, and 22 die each day waiting for a replacement. Unsurprisingly, lots of people are working to get more people to donate their organs. The American Journal of Transplantation published a study recently detailing how Spain reached 40 donors per million people. That's huge. In Australia, it's 18 per million. In Israel, it's 11. And in Ecuador, it's 2. Thanks to efforts in the US, we're pretty high on the list at 26 per million. In the end, Spain might be in the lead, but the winners are the people who are willing to give up parts of themselves they no longer need, and the stories of those who receive the life-saving donations. So why do we even have to match organs in the first place? That's what one group of researchers thought, so they figured out how to donate from anyone to anyone else. Amy's got that story right here. And if you guys like interesting and obscure facts, which I know you do, check out our friends at Did You Know for 9 facts that'll make you smarter than everyone else. And do you plan to donate your organs? Why or why not? Let us know down below in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more D News every day.
という話でした。ということで、this is a compact explanation about donations and the brain death to the donation and how to think about what is the present condition. And in Japan, this kind of the organ transplantation law is settled before about 20 years ago. But the number of organ donation is not so much in Japan also presently. Look like this. Because many problem is also remaining about this kind of systems. First case is 1999. It is settled at the time, and after that about 1 year later, the first donation is just shown. And for about 15 years, it is only the less than 400 cases. And also the 2009, it is a little bit changed. Without the patient itself own well, the family can decide it is donated or not. And also the less than the 15 years old people, the small children can donate his own organs or tissues, own body. By, for example, by the parents' intention, parents' will, not necessarily own will. ということで、these cases, まあちょっと this a little bit old record, but the brain death looks like this. But of course, many cases is done after the cardiac death, of course. And the heart, lung, liver, pancreas looks like this. And the kidney is the most, because kidney is the durable tissue. Because it says how long that organ can work well without blood providing. The heart only works without blood providing for 4 hours. Lung can work without blood providing up to 8 hours. Liver can work up to the less than 1 day, no providing the heart, no providing blood. But the kidney can work the less than 3 days. So therefore, kidney is easy to transplant to some patient, some others. But of course, the heart is very difficult. Only work after for less than 4 hours. 4 hours no providing blood. So therefore, without this kind of the donation organ transplant law, the kidney is commonly done in the hospital. はい、まあいいや。で、this is looks like this. This is a date, so it's a little bit old date, more than 10 years ago. But it is pointed out there are several problems in the organ donations and also the organ donations, the brain death decision. So one is the brain death problem. Brain death is produced by using the ventilator. So this kind of technology is producing this brain death conditions so long times, so long hours. Without that engineering technology, the brain death condition is not kept only 3 hours, only 4 hours, because without blood providing, the cardiac can stop. Heart will be stopped in 4 hours. So therefore, the blood cell circulation engineering system is providing this kind of so long brain death conditions. これはブレインデスプロブレムね。もちろん、ブレインデス decision criteria is as I said, as I explained, brain death design criteria, decision criteria looks like this. This kind of tests is made But you can find all of these tests is give the patient to some outer stimuli, and response is checked. His response is checked. So therefore, if the inside of his body can work and his brain can work, if the patient lost the way to communicate, lost to communicate or lost to make some the intention, appearance, method, the way to express his own intention, he cannot express anything more. So the brain some part controls the peripheral, interface peripheral is lost. He cannot say anything. He cannot communicate anything. It is only response, reaction, detection system. So therefore, in some case, it is possible if this patient is only lost these functions, these communication functions, but inside his body he works well. In many cases, in some cases, it is possible. というのがこのなんだ、brain death decision criteria. And alsoこれがこの limiting point is very very difficult to find. そうそう。これね、なんだっけ、これだ。これ no never recover it says, but how to find this border? It's a little bit difficult. It is also depending to individuals. This border is some cases is high, some cases too low. So therefore, how to find the never recovery border for each patient is also the very big issues, this very big problem for people for find out decision criteria. はい、まあいいや。で、これは judgment method, as I said, the only stimulus, brain and response, the detection method. So in some case, it is difficult to show his own will. In some cases, it is possible. And also, this is measurement equipment responsibility or reliability is also the one important. And the not stakeholder of doctors has to check this, but is it there or not is also some something is there. まあいいや。あとこの brain damage to patient, the treatment of brain death this patient is very very sensitive, and it is carefully. For example, some cases water should be provided, some cases water should not be provided. This water control is very very difficult for the brain carers. And the apnea test, no oxygen providing condition should be checked. To do this, self-breathing, no self-breathing must be checked. To do this, the ventilator should be stopped. It means when the ventilator stopped, the patient make more damage because no more oxygen is provided to the patient for about 20 minutes. So it makes the patient body make some damage. Definitely become to the definitely forced into the brain death. Well, to inform the family's problem. Family is asked family is asked from the doctor or the coordinator about possibility of donation. So it is family's consent is very, very difficult to judge immediately. And if it is planted, survival rate, graft survival rate, life survival rate, and graft survival rate is a little bit different. Life is kept, but the graft is worked well, is more or less possibility. For example, the heart, 1 year work well, 5 year work well, 10 year work well, it looks like this. About 50% is the work well for 10 years. But lung, for example, lung, 1 year work well, 5 year work well, 10 year work well. Less than 20% works is planted lung. はい。というようなプロブレムありますよ。これはそうか。サバイバルレートね。それはサバイバルレートはリビングサバイバルレートで、ハートはルックサイクです。キドニールックサイクです。レバールックサイクはこれ1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. Lung is not good. Lever is looks like this.
Yeah, but lever, there's only a piece of a lever. It's not the whole lever, it's just a piece of the lever that grows up.
だからこれはサバイビングだから、people is living. But the liver is act well, works well, is not caring about this data. After transplanted, 生存率っていうのは、サバイバルレートは only living, keep living. 生着にグラフトサバイバルレート is more important. Graft works well, this organ works well after transplanted is the more important. This is the looks like this. So the heart planted part is transplanted heart works 85% after 1 year. After 5 years, 70% transplanted heart works well. But to the 10 years, after 10 years, less than 50% heart works well.
This is 49 hearts in the data.
これ
In the graphic.
これこっち
There's a 49 after hearts.
これ言ってる
The left graphic.
これだからtransplanted
The left one.
left one これ
Yes, heart.
これはハートはだからハートはトランスプランテッドって言っ
Yeah,
て
it's 49.
49 people これ this data 49 people's case だからトランスプランテッド49 people and this is someone is dead, someone is dead, someone is what, someone is dead, and the kidney is more than 2,000 people is transplanted. And this kidney works well or not is looks like this patient is living or not. 5 years, after 5 years, about 90% people is living. But this kidney works well is not cared in this graph. これね、だからサバイバルステートは only living or not. このグラフトサバイバルレート is more important. This graft, this organ is works well, is not caring this graft.
So you said that liver and lung?
Liver is lung. If the liver or lung is transplanted, this patient cannot live up 5 years. Only 60% of people can live.
Yeah, but after 1 year, it's already clear.
After 1 year, it's already here.
Yeah.
Already here. After less than 75% people will die after lung transplanted. It says.
So it's 70%. So it's.
I don't know exactly. At the time of transplanted, the patient is damaged so much. Okay? It is depending on the starting point, of course. starting point to the patient condition is very different for each patient. So therefore, this graph is only saying after transplanted, survived, living so many years. It says, it only says. So therefore, depending on the time of the patient condition when the organ is transplanted. But this graph is more reliable, I think. Kidney is works. The 1 year is the 88%, 5 years 65%, but to the 10 year only 36% graft. Kidney works well after transplanted. Okay, you understand what I say? これだからリバーもそうで、リバーも after 1 year 80% works, after 5 years 64%, less than 50% liver can work well after transplanted 10 years. だからまあトランスプランテーションっていうのも not continuous solution. Only tentative solution, 5 year, 10 year tentative solution for patient. It says. And the brainless people is the living. Some people is make some response about the hand shaking or something. It is said Lazarus sign. Some patient moves his hand. And the surviving rate, brainless people, it looks like this, this date. But in Japan or some other Eastern countries have some tradition to donating. Prince Satta is giving his body to the hungry tigers. So this is a story. And also traditionally, for example, the brain's fluid, liver or something is and also placenta is used as some menopause symptoms recovering drug. But the placenta means the women's this part. So this is used as a revitalizer or health food or cosmetic. But in many cases, the human's placenta, pork's placenta is used as a drug. Or 昔の QP コアゴールドっていうのもこれが使われていました。Humans placenta。なんかね、ここら辺を見ると、I eat your own placenta とか言って、own placenta's なんかクッキングメソッド is introduced here。で、ということで、your organs is completely used, so the some まあこれ organ is public resource, political resource or something is some government is saying it looks like this. And so therefore the brain death patient is used in many transplantation source or medical treatment source or the medical delivery checking source or drug tested source or some the student or some researches works source. The island more than 10 years ago, the movie is showing this kind of problems. もう時間がないよね。このアイランドで、サムアイランドにこのcopied people. これちょっとここ見たらしょうがない。 copy the people がこう見ると、ここら辺、ここら辺ですね。だからそこになんか copy the people is the develop. Maybe saying the people is develop. So this kind of ちょっとごめん、次授業あるよね。まあso after that this kind of information should be looked after this, and then during this winter break, please think about the donation is good activity or not.